Hello, and welcome back to Felony Spectator. I am your host, Heather. Today we're talking about a love triangle that didn't work out very well and resulted in the death of two people. Let's just get right into it. Anne Anastasi was a 44-year-old female and was living in Anne Arundel County in Maryland. Anne and her husband Anthony Anastasi were married for 18 years and had 5 children together. The neighbors said that they were quiet and, on the outside, a loving couple. They ran a business out of their home called Snakes R Us, which eventually folded, and they also sold kittens as well for extra money. Anthony was a remodeling contractor, but a recent injury had left him unemployed. Anne was a home health aide and studying for her certification. On May 5th, 2015, Anne would call 911 and say that she left the house in the morning, dropped off her kids at school, ran some errands, did some grocery shopping, and when she returned home, she found her husband in the bedroom dead when she tried to wake him up for a doctor's appointment.
Anne Arundel County 911.
I just spent the day taking kids to the dentist and then going grocery shopping. I'm supposed to be leaving to take my husband to a doctor's appointment right now, but he's not responding at all, and he's got his gun laying next to him in the bed.
Do you think he shot himself?
I don't know. I didn't turn the lights on in the room.
At this point, Anne didn't mention anything about Jacqueline Riggs, a 25-year-old female who lived in their basement. I couldn't find a lot about Jacqueline Riggs, but her obituary would say that she loved coffee and conversations with her friends, watching her nieces and nephews, and going on road trips. And her friends on a GoFundMe page would say that she was soft and gentle in nature and worked as a childcare worker. Police would later tell Anne that Jacqueline was also found dead in their home, and she seemed surprised and thought maybe it was a murder-suicide. Strangely, she didn't mention that her daughter was homesick from school and if her daughter heard gunshots or anything out of the ordinary. So police brought her in for questioning as well. According to Anne's statement, she claims that the evening prior, herself, Anthony, and Jacqueline had been drinking in Anne's bedroom and searching on the computer for a replacement vehicle for Jacqueline. After searching for a bit, Jacqueline would go downstairs to her room in the basement. And then sometime between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m., Anthony went into the basement to discuss plans about the vehicle. While Anthony was in the basement, it said that Jacqueline and Anthony could be heard arguing. Anthony would then come back upstairs and told Anne not to go into the basement or bother Jacqueline. Anthony then instructed Anne to get the kittens that were living in their bedroom and get out. He then locked the bedroom door, so Anne went and slept with her 2 other kids in their bedroom. The following morning, Anne would get her children up and take 2 of them off to school. Her 13-year-old stayed home sick, and one of the kids would go to the dentist, then go to school late. Anne would then come home and got her 13-year-old daughter, who was homesick, and they would go to the grocery store. Anne would go on to say that when they returned from the grocery store, she went up into their bedroom and tried to wake Anthony for a doctor's appointment, but he was dead, so she would call 911. Anne would go on to explain to police that her husband was depressed because he had been out of work. He had several back surgeries, and his depression is what Anne thought pushed him over the edge. When police informed her of Jacqueline's murder, she then went on to say that it was maybe a murder-suicide and that Jacqueline was her husband's mistress. So police would bring in homicide detectives to further investigate. When police asked who Jacqueline was, Anne told police that Jacqueline Riggs was just down on her luck and latched on to Anthony as a father figure. So they had brought her into their home to give her a place to stay. When investigators went through the home, they'd see that the house was really messy and unorganized. Some would even say that it resembled a hoarding house. There was just a lot of stuff everywhere, boxes everywhere, garbage on the floors, and they seemed to have just a lot of things, just boxes all over the place. In the bedroom, the bed even had stuff all over it. So I don't know if that was a normal thing or not, but it didn't seem like they could both sleep in the bed together. When investigators found Anthony, it first appeared as though he shot himself in the temple. they would find a Sig Sauer .45 caliber handgun next to Anthony. They would also find a .380 shell casing, which was odd, so they took that for evidence as well. When police went downstairs, they would hear heavy metal music playing quite loudly. Then, right in the middle of the floor was Jacqueline Riggs in a pool of blood. She had been stabbed multiple times and all over her entire body, her head, her torso, her arms, her legs, just everywhere. And there was also blood everywhere. Investigators said it was really eerie to walk down the stairs with this loud music playing and then seeing Jacqueline Riggs. It just was not a scene that anyone would want to see. The basement also seemed quite messy, just like the rest of the house, but they were unable to find a murder weapon that was used on Jackie. Investigators also said that they wouldn't see any forced entry into the basement either. The deadbolt to the door was locked from the inside, and it appeared as though the windows were all screwed shut from the inside as well. Anne and the kids were brought into the police station for further questioning. It was then discovered that Anne and her husband Anthony and Jackie were all sort of in a relationship together. So it wasn't the situation where Anthony felt sorry for Jacqueline like Anne had originally told police. They had met Jackie in Michigan and had a threesome together while they were there. Anne claims that she was no longer interested in the threesomes, but Anthony was. So he had moved Jackie into their home in Anne Arundel County in Maryland during the summer of 2015. After Jackie moved in, things started to go sideways for Anne and Anthony's marriage because Anthony was constantly leaving the bed he shared with Anne and going downstairs to see Jackie. It seemed like Jackie and Anthony were cutting Anne out of the relationship altogether. Anne didn't want Jackie downstairs anymore, and she brought this up once with Anthony and was told just to mind her own business, and if she didn't like the relationship, she could just leave. Anne said that she wasn't jealous of their new relationship, but she just didn't understand why Anthony and Jackie would want to be in the home with her and the kids. She thought he and Jackie should go, but I guess neither parent really wanted to leave their kids. Police asked Anne if she touched anything at the crime scene when she found her husband deceased, and she did not. She said that she didn't touch anything and she just called 911. Anne was very cooperative, and she gave police her clothes, and she gave them a detailed statement, and even took a polygraph test. But it seemed as though her story and her daughter's story had some inconsistencies. Anne's 13-year-old daughter was apparently homesick from school that day, so police wanted to know what she heard or what she saw. Apparently, she was really, really upset by the time she got to the police station and was acting very erratic. She actually tried to run out of the building, but police were able to bring her back and calm her down. It said that the daughter and Anthony were really, really close growing up. She loved him a lot. There was some mention of the daughter possibly have overheard a conversation by her father and Jacqueline. And Jacqueline allegedly wanted a baby, and the discussion was around just that. And this must have really upset their daughter. She was only 13, and she was really close with her dad. And here he is secretly trying to have a baby with this new girl. No disrespect to Jacqueline, but I could see how a teenage girl could see that as her dad trying to start a new family, and that could really hurt. While it's not confirmed that they were in fact trying to have a baby, coincidentally, the police would find a used pregnancy test on the floor of the basement under some garbage. In the early hours before the incident, at 3 a.m., the daughter would have a 10-minute phone conversation with Anne. When questioned, Anne claimed that this was a pocket dial or a butt dial in her words, but police didn't really believe that. Forensics would then notify police that the Sig Sauer, the gun found beside Anthony, was not the gun used to end Anthony's life. The Sig Sauer shoots a .45 caliber bullet. And remember, they also found a shell casing of the .380. Well, there's no way that you can fit a .380 into a .45 caliber handgun. It just won't work. The bullet that was lodged inside Anthony's head was also a .380, which matched the shell casing. This means Anne or somebody made the mistake of putting the wrong gun beside Anthony when trying to make it look like a suicide. I mean, Anthony died immediately after the gunshot, so he didn't switch the guns. And police brought all of this up with Anne, and they also revealed to her that they found gun residue on her clothes. She tried to claim it was milk from the kittens, but clearly that wasn't right. They also informed her that she completely flunked her polygraph, and she didn't really even say much other than, "That's weird." During the investigation, everyone's cell phones were taken as well, and it was discovered through text messages that on the dates leading up to Anthony's death, Anne was conspiring with her 13-year-old daughter, discussing the exchange of a handgun, concealment of property, and a discussion of murder towards Anthony and Jackie. Anne also convinced her 13-year-old daughter's boyfriend, Gabriel Struss, who was 18 years old at the time, to kill Anthony and Jacqueline. Gabriel had texted his girlfriend, Anne, that night about the murders, and warned the daughter not to speak with police or he would spend the rest of his life in jail. Gabriel Struss was born to a mother addicted to drugs. She tried to raise him and his older brother, but she would give the boys up for adoption when Gabriel was just about 7 years old. His adoptive family said that they were middle class and they really tried to give Gabriel a good home. Gabriel would eventually push his adoptive family away and drop out of high school, and eventually move in with his grandfather who didn't live too far away. Gabriel was also on prescription medications for depression and anxiety, but was also regularly using marijuana as well. So when he started to date Anne's daughter, I guess he just felt like he found some stability. And Anne recognized this. She realized that Gabriel was so thankful to be a part of their family that he would do just about anything. So she took advantage of that and told him that if he were to help with the murder plot, he could then move in with the family and things would just get better for everybody. It's said that Anne also convinced her daughter to falsely tell authorities that Anthony was an abusive man. She thought that this could be used as self-defense or battered wife syndrome. Anne's daughter also told her boyfriend Gabriel that she was being abused by her father, furthering convincing him to go through with the murder plot. One of Gabriel's texts would say that he was going to, quote, stab the girl and bust the dad, end quote. The night of the murder, Gabriel took some Percocets and smoked some weed. He then waited outside until everyone was asleep and opens the door and Gabriel comes inside and then provided him with a gun and he went downstairs and killed Jacqueline first. He wanted to be sure she was dead, so he went and stabbed her over 42 times. He then would come upstairs and shoots Anthony in the head while he was sleeping. When it was all over, Anne then takes Gabriel home, but makes the mistake of planting the wrong gun in Anthony's hand. The next morning, everyone carried on like normal. They got up, they ate breakfast, had a shower. She took some of the kids to school, which in itself is very disturbing. Anne pretended like nothing happened while two people lay dead in her home. When investigators presented their theory to the daughter, she confessed everything, as did Gabriel. Gabriel Struss pled guilty and is serving a 60-year sentence. He said Anne was the mastermind behind the entire plan. Anne gave Gabriel the gun and convinced him that he wouldn't get caught and life would be better once Anthony was gone. Gabriel's attorney would say that while Gabriel pled guilty, he was weak-minded, meaning easily manipulated. Gabriel has apologized for his part and regrets everything that he did. He thought he was doing the right thing to make his girlfriend happy. The daughter was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and an accessory after the fact, and she will spend her sentence in juvenile detention and will be eligible for release at 21. And I do call her the daughter throughout this because she was a juvenile and her name was kept secret until recently. And you can find it online if you really want to know, but I'm just going to call her the daughter. And even though her daughter and Gabriel confessed, Anne still held on to her innocence. She wanted to take it to trial and prove that it was all her kids and she wasn't a part of the murder plot at all. What kind of mother lets her 13-year-old daughter take the fall? Anne made another mistake. She actually made a phone call from prison, which recorded and basically just saying that the girl in the basement had known what was coming and it was going to be hard to convince a jury she deserved it. And with that, she changed her plea. Anne entered an Alford plea, which basically acknowledges that prosecutors have sufficient evidence to convict her, but she maintains her innocence. Anne's lawyers tried really hard to get her a shorter sentence because they felt that all of the so-called abuse Anne endured, she eventually got mad and killed the people who were the problem. They also tried to keep the cell phone records, the clothing, and the DNA samples out of court. Her lawyers argued that Anne didn't talk to the police voluntarily, and she hadn't been advised of her Miranda rights. Thankfully, the judge denied all requests and allowed everything to be at the trial, minus only 1 minute of questioning when she was detained by the police. Prosecutors say that because it was calculated and planned, it wasn't just an act of insanity or a crime of passion based on abusive claims. And that's just like the case I did on Wendy Adriano, who killed her terminally ill husband. When you make a plan, you do a premeditated murder, and it shows that you didn't simply just snap. Anne was found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder and is also serving 60 years in prison. My thoughts? I don't know about you, but I feel like everything about this case is so upsetting. It makes me so frustrated that a 13-year-old girl was dragged into her parents' issues. I'm also not sure the daughter should have been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. I mean, she was an accessory after the fact for sure, and she did know what was going to happen, but I feel like she probably was just being a good daughter to her emotionally abusive, manipulative mother, and most 13-year-old girls still think their parents know everything. They just trust the grown-ups in their life. Well, maybe not all 13-year-olds, but it is a confusing age for a lot of kids. But I honestly think she was doing what she thought was right. She was being instructed by her mother what to do and what to say. And then she admitted everything to police. And her mother ruined her life. Anne obviously should be in jail. I mean, she was the mastermind behind the whole thing. And Gabriel was 18, so Gabriel could have said no. But just all those other kids that they have are now without parents. Nobody wins here, and this case is just really sad. That's it for today. Thanks again for joining me here at Felony Spectator. If you like this episode, hit like and subscribe if you aren't already. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.